After a long ordeal, Ethan and Zoe helped the limping Victor back to the apartment. Coincidentally, Bennett and Emma were chatting in the lounge, and the moment they saw the scene, both stood up at once.
What happened to you?
Bennett asked first. Victor gave a wry smile.
The taxi got into an accident on the way back. I twisted my ankle, fortunately, it's just a surface injury.
Zoe followed up.
He went to another state to visit a friend. He was supposed to come back this afternoon, but the accident happened on the way.
Victor glanced down at his ankle.
I think I'll be staying on the first floor for the next few days. It's too much trouble going up and down the stairs. But I need to go upstairs to grab a few things first.
Need help?
The tall Bennett was already on the move.
If you're heading upstairs, I'll go with you.
Victor nodded and followed Bennett upstairs. Meanwhile, Ethan stayed downstairs to help sort out Victor's luggage. As he went through the bag, a wallet slipped out from the side and landed on the floor, opening up. Inside was a photo. Ethan bent down, picked it up, and glanced at it. The photo showed a young woman, slender, tall, and delicate-looking, with long eyebrows and a sweet smile. Zoe leaned over for a look and blurted out,
That must be Victor's ex-girlfriend.
Ethan turned to look at Zoe, his eyes full of curiosity. Zoe paused for a moment and lowered her voice.
Don't tell anyone. Victor actually went to attend his ex-girlfriend's funeral.
The other two were stunned. Emma frowned and asked,
How do you know that?
Claire told me.
Who's Claire?
You haven't met Claire since you just moved in. She's the 5th tenant who only comes back occasionally. She was in the same department as Victor in college, they've known each other a long time. I messaged her a few days ago, and she told me about it. And everything else I'm about to say, I'm secretly repeating what Claire told me.
Victor's story goes all the way back to his college days. Back then, he was nothing like the calm person he is now. He majored in economics, was obsessed with investing, spoke aggressively, thought fast, acted boldly, and always carried the attitude of, if you don't take risks, you don't deserve to win. You could even say he had a natural gambler's streak. And that girl, he met her in a general education class. They were from different departments and had completely different personalities. She was quiet, didn't talk much, but always had a way of pulling him back with just one sentence whenever he was being impulsive. That was how they got connected and slowly started dating. You could say they complemented each other, though they often argued too. One was too headstrong, the other too reserved. But at the time, she was the only one who could get Victor to stop and think. Later, they graduated and didn't break up. They even moved in together. But living together wasn't any easier than their student days. In fact, the friction became even more frequent. The breaking point came one night. Victor came home, his voice brimming with excitement, and said he had just made a beautiful move in futures trading.
I lost 20 grand on one position, but made 50 on another, so overall I'm still up 30 grand this week.
He said this with a smug grin, that kind of arrogant confidence that says, even when I lose, I win bigger, which left a bitter taste. She didn't respond right away, but her expression clearly showed she'd had enough.
Didn't I tell you to stop doing that kind of trading? Did you forget what happened to my family?
The argument quickly escalated. She said he was always gambling and gave her no sense of security. Victor retorted that she was too conservative, without taking risks. How could there be any opportunity? That night, there was no resolution. The fight ended in a breakup. Victor, being stubborn, never contacted her again after the breakup. It was like he locked that part of his life in a vault, never touching it, never mentioning it. And she slowly disappeared from everyone's life as well. Until 2 months ago, when Claire suddenly told Victor that one of the girl's friends had gotten in touch through connections, saying she was seriously ill late stage. Victor was silent for a long time when he heard the news. By the time he finally decided to put aside his pride and set out to visit her, word came that she had already passed away. He was too late. So the first time they met each other after the breakup was at her funeral. Back to the present, upstairs, Bennett was standing outside the room, waiting for Victor to finish gathering his things so they could head back down. Victor was crouched in front of a cabinet, sorting through it, his movements gradually slowing. He deliberately pulled out a worn-out notebook from the drawer and flipped to a particular page. On that page was a single sentence. Winners lose because they forget they're human. He remembered a general education class back in college, where the professor had the students break into groups for a debate. He clearly recalled how fired up and confident he'd been, passionately presenting his arguments one after another, saying things like true winners don't care what others say because the market will eventually bow to the strong. After he finished speaking, there was both applause and frowns in the classroom. Then, a girl stood up and asked him one question.
Then who do you think the market listens to?
He chuckled and shot back.
The market listens to the strong, obviously.
She didn't argue. Instead, she walked to the blackboard, picked up a piece of chalk, and wrote that sentence. Winners lose because they forget they're human. Then she looked at Victor and said,
The market listens to emotion.
At that moment, the whole classroom fell silent. Even the professor was caught off guard. Victor kept up his tough front, but inside, something had stirred. For the first time, he noticed that this quiet girl who always sat in the corner and rarely spoke actually had a kind of sharp, crystal-clear insight. After class, Victor ran up to her and asked,
Where'd you get that line? Did you copy it from somewhere?
She shrugged.
Nope. My dad said it. He lost everything in the stock market. That was the last thing he told me before he ended his life.
Victor didn't say anything more. He simply jotted that line down in his notebook. Winners lose because they forget they're human. It was the first time he didn't argue back for the sake of winning. He wrote it down seriously, because he knew she was right. From then on, they started working on reports together. Every time they discussed something, Victor couldn't help trying to take the lead, to win the argument. But halfway through, he would often hit a wall, only to realize that what she was saying actually made more sense. She never rushed to rebut, never fought to win. She would always let him talk himself into a dead end until he had nothing more to say. She wrapped her softness in logic and gradually taught him how to truly listen to someone else. Victor continued flipping through that old notebook. When he reached the last page, a small piece of paper slipped out from between the pages. The note was folded in half, with a clear crease. The moment he saw it, his fingers paused. A memory rushed back to him the night of their breakup. That night, they were sitting at the dining table, discussing a particular product. She advised him not to get too carried away and said,
You always go all in. This item is so cheap and unwanted, if you actually made money from it, it'd be pure luck.
She pulled out her laptop from the side of the table to show him. She was just joking, using the cheap product to make a point. But Victor, without a second thought, opened his own computer and placed 2 $1,000 orders, one for himself, one for her. Then he grabbed 2 sticky notes from the table, wrote something on each, kept one for himself, and stuffed the other into her hand.
This is your share. Happy now?
He grinned widely, as if he'd just proven himself a hero. She didn't know how to respond. That wasn't her point at all. Victor, feeling triumphant after his flashy purchase, began bragging about another recent trade. He said he had bought 2 futures contracts, one of which lost $20,000, but the other made $50,000.
So in the end, I'm still up $30,000. That's the art of investing, you get it?
She didn't laugh. Instead, her face darkened and she looked straight at him, her tone low.
Don't you think this is all really insecure?
At the time, He just thought she was being overly sensitive and dramatic. The fight escalated. In the end, it ended with a single line.
Then I guess this is it.
That night was their final conversation. Outside the room, Bennett had been waiting for a while. He peeked his head in and saw Victor still sitting there and asked,
What are you looking at? Thinking about something?
Victor looked down and smiled.
Nothing, just suddenly remembering some interesting things from my investing days.
He added casually,
Sometimes, you go all in chasing fortune, placing heavy bets, and even after all the effort, the overall returns aren't that great. But ironically, the things you didn't take seriously at all might be the ones that actually make you rich.
Bennett nodded.
Yeah, just like Bitcoin. Who took it seriously in the beginning?
Victor froze for a moment, his eyes lighting up as if Bennett had struck a chord deep inside him. But he quickly composed himself and smiled faintly. His gaze returned to the note. The 12 familiar words written on it felt like a final code from the past left just for him. The next afternoon, Eason was sitting in the lounge, drinking coffee while reading a book. Despite his injury, Victor insisted on sitting at the table, working on a painting. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Eason said,
I'll get it.
He walked to the door and opened it. A young woman stood there, smiling at him. Eason stared. She was slender and tall, delicate features, long eyebrows, and a sweet smile. Eason suddenly remembered, wasn't this the woman from the photo in Victor's wallet 2 days ago? Victor's ex-girlfriend? Startled, Eason stumbled back a few steps and even fell onto the stairs beside him, blurting out,
You're a ghost?
Vocal.